Hello, welcome to SquishiVision, where we're going to do a fairly quick, because I have things to do and it's 3:15, reaction to the trailer for the live-action Christopher Nolan The Odyssey film, which I'm fairly interested in. I haven't, to my shame, actually read the entirety of The Odyssey, and I probably should, and maybe I will before this film comes out. But I am very, very familiar with the story. I mean, it's literally older than feudalism, so everyone kind of knows the story, but like I've watched previous adaptations, I've read previous like adaptations of it, essentially, retellings and research, studied it to some degree when I was at school, and I did Latin and ancient Greek for a year and some degree of like classical studies. I think there was at least some parts where I had to translate parts of the original, well, not original, but translate parts of like the Latin adaptation. And I've studied like a lot of like the Trojan, the plays around the Trojan War and stuff. So I am fairly familiar with it. I'm a big fan of the BBC, I think it's BBC miniseries. I've watched that a few times. It's where I guess most of the knowledge comes from. So, it'll be interesting to see. Now, there's been a lot of controversy around this film, being around its historical accuracy. And I kind of get it. Like, a lot of people have been like, why are you caring about historical accuracy when it's not historically, it's not like a historical tale, it's mythology. And I kind of see both points. From one side, yes, it is like as far as we know, well, obviously this didn't happen entirely because this is mythology and it's not mythological creatures. I mean, whether or not the Trojan War actually did occur is academically disputed from what I can tell. Unlikely it was one long, prolonged war, but like several subsequent of like different conflicts. These particular people are probably unlikely to have existed and exist only in like mythology and legend. They're kind of like Arthur in our kind of stuff. It's probably somebody existed who these characters are completely based on. So it's not like historically, it's not a historical thing. But it is kind of a historic drama, and it is set during it is set in the real world. Like, it would be if you told a fictional story of something that happened in the 80s and you had a lot of anachronisms of things in the 80s. Like, yes, the story is fictional, but you're still setting it in a real time. And, you know, this is set in a real time, vaguely. And I think a lot of the criticisms, my knowledge of Roman Greece is mostly ancient Roman Greece. It has always mostly been around mythology rather than history. I have some degrees of like classical civilization knowledge in terms of how they lived, but I'm not like an archaeologist or like a deep kind of like study of it. So I couldn't tell you like accuracy off the top of my head of certain things, and I'm not going to do that in this video because I'm into it. But there's probably a period of time where you could. I think the complaints are some of these things come from more subsequent eras. I think the biggest kind of complaint that people have said, and I kind of agree with, actually I'll give a flip side first. The other flip side is often, at least in my experience, when we performed plays set in Greek plays, and I see this frequently, when you see a lot of like Greek plays set, we don't tend to care that much about accuracy. I mean, when I did Agamemnon, we all just wore modern black clothing. It was meant to be like very kind of like non-time specific clothing, very generic clothing. A lot of like other plays I've seen perform, they don't tend to like care much about costume design or background. It's like, I mean, which is more effort than the Greeks ever did, where it was basically a mask towards a costume, and it wasn't really acting. Greek play isn't really about acting or staging or such. You basically stood in very kind of fixed spots, wore a mask, and spoke poetry in dialogue or in chorus. It wasn't really a performance as we kind of know today in modern eras. A lot of plays today obviously change that because audiences, but not all of them actually. Some of them do still use masks. I think there's like a performance of maybe Trojan Women, I want to say, with what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm blanking. Tony Robinson. And you only know it's him because of his voice, because he's wearing a mask the entire time. But on the flip side, and there's pretty egregious things in this. For example, I mean, people have pointed out that a lot of the clothing is very kind of dull in colour, when we know historically, from what I've seen people say, that they would be wearing white, colourful clothing, and it's kind of matching what we know this armor to look like based on what's remaining. And I guess more egregiously, the most egregious thing actually, is some of the set photos I've seen seem to be filmed around what appear to be ruins. What we know Roman, or rather Greek, things look like now after years and years of degradation. But obviously during the time they would have looked much, much different, much more modern. So yeah, but let's go into this basically to well, the stream crashed for some reason. Fortunately, we were able to restore it. So let's give this a watch, shall we? That is not the thing I wanted to play. It's annoying that it does that.
After years of war, no one could stand between my men and home.
The famous Odyssean hubris. The Odyssey is where I learned the word hubris from. It's one of my favourite words. I think that's a Cyclops cave. I was right! Is that the... I don't know what it is. I know he goes into, like, the land of the dead at some point, but...
Promise me you will come back.
What if I can't?
When is it coming out? 17th of July. That's how long I have to read the Odyssey. Okay, not really much to kind of pull out. So, well, again, it's been a while since I've like familiarized myself with the story, and someone's probably done a much better job of this than me. But like, I think this is obviously like the graves of all the soldiers who died in the Trojan War. Ulysses is I wonder if they're going to call him Ulysses or Odysseus. I mean, I suspect they've already probably said that in like some press release. But I prefer to call him. Well, yeah, Odysseus is his original. Wait, Ulysses. Ulysses is his original Greek name. I think. No, Odysseus is. I can't remember now. I'm blanking. It would be Ulysses, wouldn't it? Would it? No, Ulysses is Latin. Yes, Odysseus is his Greek name, because obviously the original thing is called the Odyssey. Odysseus, I do have a Latin GCSE. I do know what I'm talking about. He's talking about how no one can stop him getting them home. I suspect that's probably not. I expect that's probably like a later on kind of narration that he says. But there's a part where he like taunts Poseidon, and for his hubris, he gets cursed. This, I think, is again during the Trojan War. Is this the first Nolan film that has Matt Damon in the starring role? Because I know he's like cast him in like stunt roles before. Again, I think the ones where he's more fancy are like during the Trojan War, and then Alexa, stop. That's me being late. These where he looks more and more rugged are kind of obviously further along in the journey. I mean, this could be anywhere. This is obviously, I think this is where the criticism of the kind of geography is, because like this is where's the clear button? There it is. You know, ruins essentially. Not ruins, but like it would look different to this. Like you wouldn't have all these cracks and stuff. Is I think what people are saying. Tom Holland as Odysseus's son. I swear I know what I'm talking about. Telemachus, who we saw in the teaser speaking. And then obviously we've got Anne Hathaway as Penelope. And then we just get more shots of the Odyssey, of all the ships. There's multiple ships, which is a distinct difference, I think, from the BBC version where we had one ship. Don't actually know how many ships. I think it's probably said in the original like books how many ships they had. We're obviously going to see the end of the Trojan War, which I don't actually know if that's in the Odyssey. I don't think it is. I think it's actually only one text that actually has the horse in it. Although actually, I think a few of us like refer to the horse, but only one text actually. And it's not the Trojan War. It's not the Iliad either. But we're gonna start off, I think, which makes sense because it was Odysseus's idea, and I think he commanded it, from what I remember. So we're gonna see that there's I think a very kind of tense moment here where they test to make sure no one's inside it by stabbing it, and he has to stop from screaming out. Why they don't just open it? I guess they don't want to break it, if they suspect people are in it, but. Because I don't think there's actually any part, from what I recall, I've never been told any part of the text where it's implied that they were suspicious, but I know there's a seer who's like, you don't take the horse, and then he gets eaten by a sea monster. I wonder if we're going to see that. This is actually the only fantasial element we get hinted to in the entire trailer, so I identify this immediately as the famous cave of Polyphemus, who we see the kind of silhouette there. This could be anything again. It might be them fleeing from him. Can't actually remember what this is. I know they go to the land of the dead, but I think it's just Odysseus who goes to the land of the dead. He's already lost his crew by then. That happens fairly like midway through, I think. So I'm not sure what this is. Might be a nightmare sequence, or might be something I'm forgetting from the text. And then just like generic kind of ship stuff. It looks good. I am curious to know what the big time element is going to be, because Christopher Nolan likes to play around with time in his movies. There isn't anything that I can recall from this the Odyssey that particularly explores time of then, like how long it takes him to get home. but nothing in the normal kind of like Nolan sense. Anyway, I need to bounce, but so yeah, we got Matt Damon as Odysseus, we've seen. Tom Holland as Telemachus, and halfway as Penelope. Robert Pattinson, who we don't see in this trailer, as Antinous, who's one of Penelope's suitors. So I don't expect we're going to see much. Well, I don't know. The BBC adaptation, we kept cutting between what the journey and what's happening back in Ithaca. Potentially they're going to do something here, so we get the most out of our kind of stars, but who knows? Lupita Nyong'o is in this, but in a role that's not being announced yet. Then Daya as Athena, Charlie Theron as Circe, John Bernthal as Melanus, who I suspect, obviously we're only going to see at the beginning because when they're in the kind of the Trojan war. Again, in the same section, we've got Agamemnon played by Benny Safdie. Do I know Benny Safdie? Oh, yeah, he's an Oppenheimer. So again, another Nolan. And then we get more of a shipmate, so we get John Leguizamo as Emmaus, who is a Spanish actor. And was in Super Mario Bros. Live action one. We've got Himesh Patel as Yuri Locus, who's a British Indian actor. He was in EastEnders. He's Ithacan. So is it gonna? I imagine they're gonna get normal crowds complaining that you've got a British Indian playing a ancient Greek person. To which I remind you that ancient Greek performances are very much like Shakespeare, and it doesn't really matter who's playing them. You got similar. You got Will Yun Lee of Nothing I Have Seen. Oh, he's in the Wolverine. As one of as an unnamed shipmate. You got Mia Goth as a maid. Madeline Four. So I think she is she. Was she the? Yeah, I think she was one of the. Is she one of the? I know there's one of the, or a few of the maids who betray Penelope and they get hanged in the Odyssey, but I can't remember if that's one of them. And then Jimmy Gonzalez as Cepheus, one of the other shipmates. And then, so we have Elliot Page in the film. Not sure. These are actors who are not yet announced. We've got Elliot Page, Bill Owen, Samantha Morton, Jessica Garcia, Rafi Gavron, Shiloh Ferdinand, Corey Hawkins, Nick E. Tarabay, Maurice Comte, Michael Vlamis, Edo Goldberg, Josh Stewart, Ryan Hurst, Anthony Molinari, Jovan Adepo, Logan Marshall Green, and James Rembar. Okay, I have gotta go. So we're gonna call it there. Thanks for tuning in and get out of my house. Oh, actually, sorry. This is pretty funny. There's a comment here about Matt Damon trying to get back home. It's a whole genre I've always appreciated, which, it didn't occur to me, but that's probably why he's casting this role. About Matt Damon trying to get back home. It's a whole genre it didn't occur to me, but that's probably why he's casting this role. It didn't occur to me, but that's probably why he's casting this role.